Good morning, my name is Helen Burhs, and this is my story of a friend and 40 days. So I had a relatively uneventful childhood, came from a very happy home. My parents would drop us off at Sunday school occasionally, quite a liberal family that I came from. And when I was a teenager, I fell in love with my potential husband. We were childhood sweethearts, and by the time I was 22, we were married and I was pregnant with Jordan. I fell pregnant with Gemma when I was 24. By 25, I was single, divorced, and had had my baby on my own. My husband and I had grown up together and spent a lot of time together. We were great friends. But something went wrong, and went to draw some money, and the credit card had been scratched. Eventually, I took myself off to the bank, only to discover everything had been taken and he had withdrawn the money at an ATM at the carousel. My first husband had a gambling addiction. Armed with this information, I headed back home to go and confront him, which he of course completely denied. I asked him to leave. At this stage, I was 6 months pregnant with Gemma. He left a week later. I took Jordan, who was now 2.5, to go and see him. We met at the McDonald's in Midrand, where he promised me that he had been to see Gamblers Anonymous, he was seeing a psychologist, he had some interviews lined up, and all of it was frankly lies. After having met him at the McDonald's in Midrand, I phoned Gamblers Anonymous. They'd never heard of him. I phoned this potential interview. They'd never heard of him. He went down to Margate, where he worked in a number of restaurants, and eventually was arrested for credit card fraud. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison. He served 18 months. And meantime, back at home, I was raising my 2 children and working 3 full-time jobs and so on to make ends meet. Eventually, he came out of prison, and the psychologist suggested that he come to Pretoria, that he meet with me. He needed to apologize and he needed to move on with his life, which he did. And it was quite incredible when I met him, because for the first time in many years, I realized that this was not the right person for me. Where there had been a lot of hope for many, many years that he would come right and we would get back together and the children would have their father, suddenly there was a realization that this was not going to happen. During this time, I had a friend. This friend had a husband and 2 children, and I would spend a lot of time with them in their home. But timing is crazy, because it was at the same time when my first husband had just come out of prison and we'd had this conversation and I'd started having these realizations that this friend invited me to attend the 40 days workshop. Simultaneously, I met a wonderful man who I'm now married to. I asked him to come to this 40 days workshop with me, which he did. And at the same time, he'd invited me to come to church with him. But it was during this time that I really started to introspect and to question and to see the people around me, like my friend, like Dion, like the people that I was starting to meet at Waterkloof Baptist Church. And there was something they had that I didn't have. My heart started to soften. It was at this time that the Lord really started to play a part in my life. And I fondly remember attending the church, listening to Pastor Mike's sermons. I think I cried in every single sermon. It was like he was looking straight through me and straight into my heart. Oh, sorry. And he just knew. He knew that there was lots that needed to be done in my life. And so I concluded the 40-day workshop, and I was baptized with Dion at Waterkloof, and we were married. And we went on to have 2 more children, Jethro and Jessica. Jethro's now 11 years old and Jessica is 8 years old. Jordan, who's 22, left this morning for Cape Town to go and complete his postgraduate studies, an incredible human being who's grown up to be such an amazing man. Gemma's now 19 years old and leaving to go and continue with her studies in Stellenbosch in a couple of weeks' time. And really, it feels like my life has come full circle. We have an amazing family, led by an amazing God. And we're in a position where we can make such a difference in other people's lives. I touch and inspire and impact people every day of my life. During these 12 years, we've started and owned businesses. We've built a home together. And it's in that home and through those businesses that I think personally, we often think that our environments need to change. We often think that everybody else around us needs to understand us. We often think that if I could just get the next job, if I could just move on to the next relationship, things will be right. And I think what I've learned through this entire process is actually it's the other way around. If I can just sort my heart out, if I can just sort my walk out, then God will place me in the environments that I need to be in. It's amazing how those environments flourish when the right presence is in place. Thank you.